MySQL database continues to be one of the world's most popular open source and top databases. Database is the heart of IT, which is needed to store all critical data and information. This course is full of MySQL database information and all the queries you need to become MySQL database administrator. Hi, my name is Imran Afzal, and I've been in IT for over 20 years now. I have been teaching IT-related courses for a while. I earned my bachelor's degree from Baruch College, which is City University of New York, and my MBA from New York Institute of Technology. For this course, I have collaborated with Abbas Mahmood, who lives and breathes in database administration. He will hold your hand and teach you everything you need to know about MySQL database administration. Abbas?
Thanks, Imran. Let me start by telling you some facts. The average salary of MySQL database administrator is about $92,000, and it ranges anywhere from $62,000 to upward of $242,000. The job market continues to bloom for MySQL skills. If you type MySQL on LinkedIn search, you will find almost 130,000 jobs listed just in United States. In this course, you will learn how to download, install, configure, manage, and troubleshoot MySQL databases. Hi, my name is Abbas Mahmood, and I have worked with government and private organizations here in New York City since 2005. I have my master's degree from City University of New York. Database administration is what I do for a living, and it's my passion. If you are in the job market looking for your dream job as a MySQL database administrator or want to take your MySQL skills to the next level, well, then come and join us in this course.
Now, I request you to please spend a few minutes with me to go over what is included in this course. And then you could decide whether this is the right course for you or not. I have divided this course in 12 different sections. Section 1 is about introduction, where we will cover about the introduction of database, RDBMS, relational database, SQL, and different type of RDBMS. Then in section 2, this is where we will design and set up our lab environment. We'll talk about the prerequisite that you need, the design. We will install the virtualization software, which will help you create a virtual machine and then install Linux machine. Once you have the Linux machine installed, then we could go in and install MySQL server on it. And that's where the section 4 we will cover the MySQL. But before we get into section 4, I am including this section 3, which we will be covering Linux basics for a database administrator. Now, if you have a good grip on Linux commands, basics and fundamentals, then I would say you could go ahead and skip this entire section. But if you feel that you should spend some time and learn some of the things about Linux, because MySQL that we're going to be learning will be running on Linux machines. So the things that we will be covering, like navigation commands, what is root, directory listing, creating files, changing password, pipes, file maintenance commands, file display commands, Linux file editor, cron tab, Linux network files and commands, and all those things, the fundamentals, the basics of Linux. No, at this point, if you still feel that you know everything that I'm covering in this section, then yes, go ahead and skip that. Then again, coming down to section 4, download, install, and configure MySQL. This is where we're going to do the fun part, and we will get into the installation of a MySQL. We'll do the MySQL workbench, and we'll download and restore sample Sakila database, which is a pre-popular database that we will be using to manipulate data. Section 5 is about database fundamentals and design, and we're covering a lot of things in it. For example, what is a table, column, how data is stored, what is a key, primary key, foreign key, database normalization, how to create your first database. Then section 6, introduction to SQL commands. Some of those SQL commands starting with SQL, DML, DDL, DCL, TCL. Every section has a quiz that I would strongly recommend you that you take. Section 7, query and data manipulation. A lot of things covering like ordered by, having by a group, joins, different type of joins, insert, update, and delete statements, loading data from CSV file to MySQL and vice versa. What is a view, function, trigger, and index on a lot more. Section 8, MySQL architecture and option files. MySQL architecture overview, programs and invocation, how to edit a configuration file. Section 9, MySQL backup and recovery. I'm talking about how you could do the backup in this entire section using MySQL dump utility, restoring of database using MySQL and Workbench, point in time recovery. We will use Persona extra backup, lab for MySQL dump and backup using MySQL Workbench, and scheduling backup jobs. Then section 10, user and privileges management, will create users in this. The users that will be using to log into database, grant statement, revoke statement, drop users. Section 11, monitoring MySQL server, will talk about what are the logs that you should be looking at being a database administrator. Then getting into section 12, MySQL replication. Yes, we are not leaving anything outside. MySQL replication is advantages, synchronization type, replication format, MySQL replication setup demo, and of course, at the end, quiz. Now, please, now you tell me, does this course has everything that you're looking for? If your answer is yes, then please go ahead and enroll. Hey everyone, in this lecture we are going to talk about the database. Database is another component of IT or computers. So, before we understand what database is, let's separate data from the base. So, what is a data? Well, data is a collection of facts such as numbers, words, measurements, observations, or just description of things. For example, your name, age, height, weight, etc. are some data related to you. A picture, image, file, PDF, etc. can also be considered as data. So now, what is the base? Base is something like a system, a foundation, or a hub, or a central location where all the data come together. So now, let's look at the database definition. A database is an organized and systematic collection of data, generally stored and accessed electronically from a computer system. Databases make data management a lot easier. Now comes the question is, data can be stored in a spreadsheet or a text document as well. So why we need a database? Well, that's a good question. Like we use spreadsheets or we have a text document, we could put our name, our age, and all that information into those documents. So why do we really need the database compared to those regular flat files? Well, database store information more efficiently. Databases can handle volumes of information that would be unmanageable in a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets have record limitations, whereas databases do not. Compared to databases, spreadsheet can require a large amount of hard drive space for data storage, whereas in databases it takes a lot less space on your storage. Also, in database, joining records is a lot easier than compared to text or spreadsheet. So let's say if you have a spreadsheet that only tells you the age and let's say some information, date of birth of a user. In another spreadsheet, there is names and the address of that user. So sometimes when you wanted to get all that data in one line or in one record, so combining those two spreadsheets, it's a lot harder than compared to running some join SQL statements to combine that record. So that's why we have database. The pulling the database or data out of database is a lot easier than compared to these simple files. Hey folks, in this lecture we are going to cover the RDBMS. RDBMS stands for Relational Database Management System, and its definition is a relational database is also a type of database. It uses a structure that allows us to identify and access data in relation to another piece of data in the database. Often data in a relational database is organized into tables. Okay, so you're probably thinking, hey, Imran, what's the difference between a regular database and relational database? Well, that's a very good question, and I could explain you in a visual way. So here's a database, and you have a table here. So let's see, this is the employee table who work in an organization. We have the employee numbers, we have the employee identification number, the name, and which department they work on. Then we have another table that has the employee identification number, their address, and their phone number. Now, in a regular database, let's say if you are saving some files, you have two spreadsheet where you have all these data saved, and they are saved on your disk. And in operating system world, that saving of the data is in a folder or in structured way, it's called file system. But in a database world, that's also a structure of data or a database. So when you have those two spreadsheet in your file system, there is no relation between these two spreadsheets. So you cannot combine those two spreadsheets to pull the information. So then comes in the relation database. In relation database, we have this one table. And then we have the second table. And there is a relation. We could have a relation between two tables. And let's say we could pull out a similar or same field that is identical between these two tables. And in this case, you notice that employee ID is the same field that can be found in both tables. So we could use that IDs and from table 1 and go to table 2 and join that. So if I wanted to know what is the address of Imran Afzal, and I know from table 1 that Imran Afzal's ID is 10001. So I'm going to take that ID and I'm going to find that and search for that ID to join in the second table so I could get Imran Afzal's address, and it will pull me the address which will be like three someplace and the phone number. That's what the relational database. And in this entire course we will be covering everything about the relational database. Hey everyone, in this video we are going to cover SQL. What is SQL? SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a programming language used to communicate with data stored in a relational database management system. SQL syntax is similar to the English language, which makes it relatively easy to read, write, update, or translate data. SQL is often pronounced in one of the two ways. You could pronounce it by speaking each letter individually, like SQL, or you could pronounce it using the word SQL. Now, what is the right word? But it really doesn't matter. You could pronounce it SQL or SQL, but let's get into a brief history of where the SQL came from. It was invented in 1970s by IBM, and the first version was called SEQUEL, SQL, which stood for Structured English Query Language. Later, it was changed to SQL because SQL or that those letters was already trademarked by an airline company. And I'm sure other companies don't want it to get into any kind of lawsuits. So they changed it to SQL. But still today, a lot of people who are in IT, you will notice, pronounce it as SQL. SQL is not a database. Now, I want everyone to pay close attention here. A lot of people think that SQL, hey, it's a database. No, to define it correctly, SQL is a command line language that many relational database management systems use to access the data from tables. So it's just a language. So people who are familiar with, for example, Linux, you probably notice there are so many Linux flavors. There's a Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, Fedora, Unix, Linux, Solaris. But when you log into the system, 90 or 80% of the commands that you use are the same. But it's just that the operating system is different, the name's different, but we use the same bash shells or we use the same commands to access the data. Similarly, SQL is structured the same way. This language is used to pull the data or manipulate the data from a database or relational database. Example statement of SQL is like select asterisk, asterisk means all, from table name. That's what I meant when I said in the first um, paragraph that SQL syntax is similar to the English language. So it becomes very easy because of the statement that is used to put the whole query together are actually derived from the English language. And that is, again, you could see select, from, where, join, which we will cover later on. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hey boys and girls, in this video we are going to cover the top 5 relational database management systems that use SQL. Now there are many of them, but we are focusing only on the first 5 ones that are mostly used in the IT environment. And the very first one is the Oracle database. It is a relational database product by Oracle and its enterprise version was released in 1979. It is a database commonly used for running online transaction processing, data warehousing, and mixed database workloads. Oracle is one of the biggest vendor in IT market. Then comes the Microsoft SQL Server, which is often referred as MS SQL Server. So MS SQL Server is a relational database server by Microsoft. Its first version was released in 1988. It is among the most stable, secure, and reliable database solutions out there. It supports wide variety of transaction processing, analytics, and business intelligence applications in corporate IT environments. MS SQL Server competes primarily against Oracle Database and IBM Database DB2. Then moving on to our MySQL. A Swedish company called MySQL AB originally developed MySQL in 1994. It's a community developed open source and its first version was released in 1995. The US tech company Sun Microsystem took full ownership when they bought MySQL AB in 2008, and I believe they paid almost like $1 billion to purchase that company. Then the US tech giant Oracle in 2009 acquired Sun Microsystem itself, and MySQL has been practically owned by Oracle since. Even though MySQL is an open source software, sorry, you could go on the website and download and install free. But you can buy a commercial license version from Oracle to get a premium support services for it. The main advantages of MySQL are that it is easy to use, inexpensive, reliable, has been around since 1995, and has a large community of developers who can help answer your questions if you do not want to get the support from Oracle. Then comes the PostgreSQL. It's a community developed open source as well, and its first version was released in 1987. It was originally named as Postgres, referring to its origin as the successor to the database developed at the University of California, Berkeley. In 1996, the project was renamed to Postgres SQL to reflect its support for SQL or SQL. After a review in 2007, the development team decided to keep the name Postgres SQL. Then comes the last one, Maria Database or MariaDB. Community developed open source as well, and its first version was released in 2009. Development is led by the same original developers, a Swedish developer of MSQL, who forked it due to the concern over its acquisition by Oracle Corporation in 2009. MariaDB is named after Monty's younger daughter, Maria. And by the way, Monty was the first person who first developed the MySQL in Sweden. Now, in this course, our focus will be on MySQL database. Hey folks, welcome to the introduction to MySQL Server. In this video, we are going to learn the new feature MySQL has to offer, what are the things that we did not cover earlier, and what are the enhanced or benefits that you could get from using MySQL. All right. MySQL database is a free open source relational database software which is written in C and C++. It is owned by Oracle, as you already know, and you can pay for its support. The main advantage of MySQL over any other database is the ease of use, it's inexpensive, reliable, and has a large community of developers who can help answer your questions. So if you do not want to pay Oracle for its support, you could actually go on the community and ask a question, and I'm sure a lot of people will help you out. Now, what Oracle has to say about MySQL and the new features they have added to the newer version of MySQL? Well, they have introduced an in-memory query accelerator, which provides 5,400 times faster performance for complex queries. It eliminates the cost, complexity, and risk of lengthy extract, transform, and load processes, which is in short for ETL processes. It is also a fully managed database service, which provides the automated data management, instant provisioning, compatibility with on-premises MySQL deployments. And then in terms of security and compliance, it has 100% built on MySQL Enterprise Edition, which help provides the highest reliability and security. And it has a data protection and regulatory compliance as well. All right, moving on. In this course, we will download, install, and configure MySQL Community version 8.0 that's been released in 2021. And we will be downloading and installing that MySQL Community version on CentOS Linux version 8, which is also a free community operating system. So this way you don't have to be restricted in terms of the number of days or evaluation days. We will populate that MySQL database with employee database, which is a free data to use for training purposes. So of course, once you're going to have MySQL database installed, then what kind of information it will have that will allow you to play around with. And for that purpose, we will use a free employee database that is readily available to people who wants to learn MySQL or any other database. Then we will be downloading and installing MySQL Workbench, which is an additional software that we will be using to manage and maintain the database, run SQL queries, perform backups, and analyze performance charts. All right, moving on to the pros and cons of MySQL Server. Pros, you already know it's free. You don't have to pay anything, but if you want to pay, you could get all the product documentation and Premier support. It is 5,400 times faster for complex queries. That's the performance it provides. It is easy. It provides easy integration with development tools, environments, as well as connection with different programming languages. And it can run either on Linux or Windows environment. Now, the cons. It is a bit hard to scale when it comes to making them or making this database itself from smaller to a larger database. So also really large database becomes slow and need a lot of maintenance. MySQL is Oracle owned now instead of community driven. Now, why do we see that as a disadvantage? Is because the vision of the MySQL is not anymore community driven. It is the decision is made or will be driven by the Oracle executives and leaderships, of course. All right. Now, one last thing I do want to mention, and that is very important. Please note, regardless which relational database management system we choose, our end goal is that you understand how to read, write, and manipulate data using SQL statements. Hey everyone, and welcome back. In this video, we are going to cover all the additions available from MySQL Server. So we'll talk about the server additions and their usage or description. So the very first one is the MySQL Enterprise Edition. So that edition includes the most comprehensive set of advanced features, management tools, and technical support to achieve the highest level of MySQL scalability, security, reliability, and uptime. It reduces the risk, cost, and complexity in developing, deploying, and managing business critical MySQL applications. Now, of course, any company that has thousands of employees and actually manage huge amount of data, for that it is definitely recommended to use the enterprise level so you could get all the support that you need and all the features that MySQL has to offer. Then the next one is the standard. MySQL Standard Edition enables you to deliver high performance and scalable online transaction processing, in short, OLTP applications. It provides the ease of use that has made MySQL famous, along with industrial strength, performance, and reliability. The next one is the community one. MySQL Community Edition is freely downloadable version of the world's most popular open source database. It is supported by a huge and active community of open source developers. And the last one is Classic. MySQL Classic Edition is the ideal embedded database for developing a read-intensive application using MyISAM storage engine. It is proven as a high performance and zero administration database. Now, I wanted to ask you, which one would you think that we would go in this course? Any guess? Yes, if you have guessed community version, then you're absolutely right. We will be using community version edition because this will allow us to use most of the feature and we could get a community support, and then we don't have to worry about its end of evaluation version where it would not provide all the functionality that it would provide during the evaluation version. So let's get ready to get the community version installed in our environment. Hey folks, welcome to lab design and setup section. In this video, we are going to talk about the lab setup prerequisite. Of course, you need to have a lab in order to go through this entire course. And to have that lab, you need to have a certain resources requirement that you should meet before you go through this entire course. So let's see if we have the right resources on our computer before we start this course. So the very first thing you should have is you should have an administrator rights on your computer. So regardless you have a PC from Microsoft or you have a MacBook from Apple or any other operating system computer that you have, make sure you have the administrator rights so you could install any other applications on that computer. Then the next thing, which is the hard disk. The minimum requirement hard disk that you should have a free available on your computer is 20 gig. For this lab, we will go with 50 gig, and my recommendation is that if you have a 50 gig, then you should go with 50 gig and go through the same setup that we will be setting up for this course. Then the next one is the memory. The memory recommendation for this lab is 4 gig. Now, if you are limited with the memory resources, you only have 4 gig and you could only spare 1 or 2 gig, then of course 1 gig is the minimum. But keep in mind, if you go with 1 gig, you might see or you might feel a delay or slow in processing your queries. So if you could spare 4 gig for your lab, then definitely make sure you go through with 4 gig. The next one is the processor speed. Minimum x64 processor, which is a 64-bit processor with 1.4 gigahertz Recommended is a 2.0 gigahertz or faster. And once we have the virtualization layer on it, then we will assign one virtual CPU for that virtual machine. And that virtual machine will be used for that lab. By the way, we will cover that virtual machine setup later on. Then the last thing is we are going to install the operating system. That operating system will be CentOS 8, which is again a free community version operating system that we will use, and that's a Linux machine. So we will be installing our MySQL database on a Linux machine. Please note, if you cannot find CentOS version 8 operating system, then you could go with the latest version, which is CentOS 9 Stream. And we are including the installation of both of these operating system and a MySQL installation on both of these operating system in this course. So please go through each one of them and make sure you have the required resources. If you have a Windows PC, for example, then all you could do is go to your Win tab or key on your keyboard, type My PC or this PC, right click on it, go to Properties, minimize that, and make sure the processor has the speed. This My processor has 3.3 gigahertz. That meets the requirement. The installed memory is 32 gig. Of course, that meets the requirement. 64-bit processor, yes. Now the disk, how much disk do I have? I do need 50 gig disk space free. So for that, I'll go in here, I'll type C drive right here and right click on the C drive properties, and you'll see it has used 271 and free space is 203 gig. Beautiful. So I have all the resources that I need to set up that lab. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hey boys and girls, and welcome to the lab design video. In this video, we are going to cover how we are going to set up our lab. What are the system requirements and what are the software that we will be installing? So the very first thing we should know that we should have is a computer. And regardless if it's a laptop or desktop, it has to have an operating system running, whether it could have Windows operating system or Mac operating system. Then on top of that operating system, what we will do is we will install a virtualization software. A virtualization software allows you to run virtual computers on top of the same hardware. So we could either go with VMware Player or Oracle VirtualBox. Both of these software are available free to install and run for training purposes, of course. Now, for this course, we are going with VMware Player. Of course, you could go with Oracle VirtualBox, but our recommendation is the VMware Workstation Player. Once we have the virtualization software installed, then we will go ahead and create a virtual machine. And then on top of that virtual machine, we will install CentOS. CentOS is an operating system, community-based operating system, free operating system. It is just like a Red Hat operating system. And after that, we will install a MySQL Community Edition on that operating system. So that's how the design of our lab, and I'm sure it's very easy for you to follow. I'll see you in the next lecture.
Hello everyone, let's take a look at virtualization. What is virtualization? Before we get into explaining the concept of virtualization, let's take a look and understand of how physical system configuration works. So, in a regular world, as you could see, there is a physical server. A physical server could be like a Dell or HP or any of those manufacturers that build a physical server. On that physical server, what do you do when you get that physical server? You actually install an operating system on top of it. And that operating system could be Windows, could be Linux, or any of the operating system of your choice, right? Then what happens? You install the operating system, and then on top of that operating system, you run your applications. Those applications are, for example, Excel, Word in Windows world, in Linux world, you'll run like a DNS application, NTP application. In a regular applications, where rarely enterprise level application like ERP, SAP, PeopleSoft, all of those applications run on on that platform where the operating system is. So this is how you see an ideal or in a regular world how the layout works. Now, what's the problem with this? The problem with this is you have a physical server. The physical server has 16 gig of RAM and 4 CPU. And then you install operating system on top of it. Operating system only needs 4 gig of RAM and 2 CPU to run. And then you install an application on top of it, and that application only needed 2 gig of RAM and 1 CPU for that application. What happens then? Then you have 8 gig of RAM and 2 CPU that are wasted. Yes, resources are underutilized. That's why the virtualization was born. People thought, they sat down, they said, you know what? We have this physical server with so much resources. We only run one operating system and one application, and everything else is wasted. We gotta come up with a better solution. So now let's look at the virtualization. When virtualization came into being, then what happened? What happened was there's a physical server, same way, running Dell on HP, whichever whoever the manufacturer is. Then you install a virtualization layer on top of it. A virtualization layer from anywhere, like from VMware, from Oracle Virtualization. Then you install operating systems on it. So you could install 2, 3, 4, how many operating system you can, depending on the resources that you have on the physical system. And then on top of those operating systems, you have the application individually run on each of that operating system. Now, what's the advantage? Let's look at the advantage. That's a physical server. Again, going back to 16 gig of memory and 4 CPU, you install a virtualization layer which takes up all your CPU memory and CPU. Perfect. Then that operating systems you have, then applications, each of that operating system application has 4 gig and 1 CPU. So each of that operating system has given all those resources. What happens then? All resources are fully utilized, not wasted. See how we could take the full advantage of all those resources? So again, one more thing. Remember those days when you have one physical server and one operating system, and then people came up with another idea of, you know what, split the disk in half and let's do dual boot. So one of the partition would run, let's say Linux, and one partition would run Windows. But the problem was with that is you could run only one operating system at a time. In virtualization, this is the beauty of the virtualization. You don't have to have one operating system run at one given time. You could run both or 3 or 4 operating systems at all times, all at the same time. That's why the virtualization is so important and so beneficial. Again, in layman's term, virtualization is something is really not real, but it is actually real. It is utilizing the system resources and sharing those system resources among all the operating system that runs on that physical server.
Hey boys and girl, in this lecture we are going to download and install VMware Workstation Player. Once again, the VMware Workstation Player is a virtualization layer that sits on top of your computer's operating system. So this way you could utilize multiple operating systems on the same computer hardware. So we will learn how to check the system resources on your computer so it meets the required resources, and then download and install the VMware Workstation Player software on our main or host computer. Okay, so very first thing is to check the resources. So if you are using Windows, then you could simply click a Win key on your keyboard and it will open up this menu or programs menu. Type PC. This will show up this PC. If it is Windows 10, it will show up this PC. If it's an older version of Windows, it will show up perhaps my PC. When you see this icon, right click on it and then go to Properties. Okay, so in the properties, you will see the processor information. You will see the install memory, which I have 32 gig, and you'll see I'm running Windows 10 Professional from my computer. So it doesn't matter if you have Windows 10 Pro or Windows Home Edition. All we are making sure is that we have the right resources. If you have anything less than 4, then I would say you definitely need to buy a newer computer with a higher memory and CPU. So we have enough, we have actually sufficed the processor and memory requirement. Now let's take a look at our hard drive. I'm going to close this down and I'm going to go back to my program menu and I'm going to type again PC. Again, I'm going to click on it and it will open up all the drives that are attached in my computer. This is the main drive, which is a hard disk. And total, it has 475 gig of space, out of which 271 gig is free. So I have a lot of disk space that I could use. For my Windows machine, I'm going to be using 50 gigs, so I still have a lot of leftover. So make sure you have enough required free disk space. If not, at least you should have a 20 gig of free space. Let's close this now. Now the next step is to download and install VMware Workstation Player software. All right, now let's get started. I have my browser already open and I'm on Google and now simply type Broadcom. All right, here we go. First, go to broadcom.com and once you are on the home page, locate the Support and Service tab. Click on it and a drop-down menu will appear. From this list, select the Document Download and Support option. Now go ahead and click on Customer Support Portal. At this point, you will go on the Broadcom support page. If you are not already registered, no worries. Just go ahead and sign up by entering some basic details like your name, email address, and a few other things. Since I am already registered, so I will skip the sign up process and head straight to the login. Once you are on the login page, enter your email as your username and then type in your password. After successfully logging in, you will notice a new option appearing at the top right of the screen, a cloud icon right next to your name. Let's click on it. Now you will see a list of different options. The fifth one on the list is VMware Cloud Foundation. Go ahead and click on that. And this will take you to VMware Dashboard. In the dashboard, you will see several options. Let's click on the third option, Download. Once you are on the Download section, you can see a wide range of VMware software available. Let's scroll down until we find VMware Workstation Player. Now let's click on it. Next, we will choose the VMware Workstation Player 17. That's the latest version right now, so let's go ahead and pick that. After selecting version 17, you will see another list with subversions. Let's click on the most recent subversion, which is 17.6. Once you have done that, you will see a download icon appear. After that, you have checked the box agreeing to the terms and conditions. You might notice that the download icon is still not clickable and doesn't allow you to download. Now why is that? This happens because VMware Workstation Player 17 now requires an entitlement from Broadcom due to new licensing restrictions. Yep, essentially you need special access or a license to download. However, If you're looking for a free option, then the previous versions like 16 are still available for download without any such requirement. So let's go back and this time select version 16. Then choose the latest subversion. As of today, it's 16.2.5. Click on it to start downloading the file. Now, the download has begun, so just sit back and let it finish. Once the download is complete, go ahead and click on the file to run the installer. The installation process may take anywhere from 30 seconds to a few minutes, depending on your computer speed. Now the VMware Workstation 16 player visit will start. Click Next to continue. After that, accept the license agreement and click Next. You will be prompted about the enhanced keyboard driver. If you install it, your computer will need to reboot. If you don't want that right now, you can skip it. Next, leave the option to add VMware Workstation console tools to the path as default and click Next. On the next screen, you can choose to check for updates. Again, leave it as default and click Next. You will also be asked if you want to create a shortcut on the desktop and in the Start menu. Let's leave those as default too and click Next one last time. Finally, click Install to start the process. Once installation is complete, the VMware Workstation Player Setup Wizard will tell you it's done. Click Finish to complete the setup. Now you can see it has created a shortcut on my desktop. Let's double click on it to open the software. Since we are using it for non-commercial purpose, select the option for free non-commercial use and click Continue. Then Finish. And there you have it. VMware Workstation is up and running. Beautiful. You can see the notice that it's for non-commercial use only. So make sure to use it just for educational purposes. Now you could go ahead and create a new virtual machine and install any operating system you need on that virtual machine. All right, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Hello again. In this video, we are going to download and install Oracle VirtualBox. Oracle VirtualBox is exactly the same as VMware Player. It's a virtualization software, but it's a product of Oracle. Now, this download and installation is completely optional. Now, for those people who like to go with Oracle VirtualBox software, then you could follow this video. For those who are going with VMware Workstation Player, then please simply skip this entire lecture and go to the next one. Okay, so I will go to my Firefox and I will type download and install Oracle Virtual, Oracle VirtualBox. Okay, so I have the download link right here. Go to download. Okay, right here it says VirtualBox 6.1.18 platform packages, and if you are looking at this lecture maybe a month later or maybe a year later, you're probably going to see a different version. So it does not matter what version is showing up here. What matters is we are picking the right platform to install our VirtualBox. If you are using Windows for your main computer, then you will go with the Windows. If you're using OS X host, which is Mac, you will go with this one. And if you're using Linux, you'll go with the Linux one, and so on. So I'm using Windows 10 version. So I'm going to go with Windows host and save file. As soon as the file is saved, you're going to see this arrow come up and then it says completed. So go ahead and click on open. Welcome to the Oracle VM VirtualBox 6.1.18 setup wizard. Okay, click next, leave everything default, click next, choose from the options below. Create a start menu, create a shortcut on desktop, create a shortcut in quick launch bar, register file association. So I like everything except this one. So again, depending on your choices, how you want to see the icon, where do you want to see the icon of this Oracle VirtualBox, you could pick depending on your choice. Click next. And installing the Oracle VM VirtualBox networking feature will reset your network connection and temporarily disconnect you from the internet. So if you're running any production application, please stop them because this is going to reset your network adapter. Go ahead and click yes and click on install. Okay, Oracle VM VirtualBox 6.1.18 installation is complete. Click Finish button to exit the setup. You could also leave the checked Start Oracle VM VirtualBox after installation. So we have to start it anyway. So click Finish, um, and it will start our Oracle VirtualBox console. Right here, if you see it, if you don't see coming up on the screen, you go to Taskbar and you will see the icon showing up here. Click on it, and there it is, Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. And this is how your console looks like. It's pretty similar to what we have for our VMware. So let me open up a VMware VirtualBox, sorry, not VirtualBox, VMware Workstation Player. And you're probably going to notice that both are look the same. This one shows VMware Workstation for non-commercial use only. This is also for non-commercial use, but it's not stated here. We could create virtual machines by clicking on this right here. You could also do add, and this is sorry, not add. File and click on new virtual machine, which is right here, sorry, machine, and click on new, and then you'll start creating your new virtual machine. Anyway, for this entire course we have decided to go with VMware Workstation Player. So if you wanted to go with the VMware, sorry, on VirtualBox, um, please be my guest, but my recommendation is let's go with VMware Workstation Player. I'll see you in the next lecture. Hey folks, and welcome back. In this video we are going to create a virtual machine. Now that we already have a virtualization software installed on our computer, now it's time to create or build that computer. So going back to our design, we have our laptop or desktop running Windows or Mac. On top of that operating system, we have installed the virtualization software, right? We went with VMware Player, or some of you probably went with Oracle VirtualBox. Now it's time to use that software and create a virtual machine. And we're going to name that virtual machine MySQL Server 1. You could name anything you want, but if you stay consistent, it will be better. Now, the virtual machine will be created with a specification once again 50 gig of disk space, 4 gig of RAM, which is memory, and one virtual CPU. So let's go right away, and I'm gonna go ahead and open up my VMware Workstation Player, which I already have open right now. Now here you will see it says create a new virtual machine. Go ahead and click on it. All right, welcome to the new virtual machine wizard. Install from installer disk. Now this is if you have a physical disk, then you pick that option. If you pick this option, which means you have an ISO image, a soft copy, then you pick this option by actually browsing to that location. We don't have it yet, so what we will do is we'll say, I will install the operating system later. That's perfectly fine. Go ahead and click next. Now, which guest operating system we will be installing? Of course, we are going with Linux because we are going to run our database MySQL on a Linux environment. So go ahead, click Linux. Now it is asking us to be more specific. Which version? We are going with CentOS 8. If it doesn't have CentOS 8, then yes, it does. Then we could have gone with Red Hat because they both are the same, but I'm glad it has CentOS 8, 64-bit. Go ahead and select that one. Okay, please note that if you are going with CentOS version 9 or a different version and you're trying to find it right here in the versions list and it's not listed, then you could go with the generic version, which is other Linux, and pick the highest version, which is right now is 5.x kernel 64-bit, and click next. The virtual machine name. What is the name that we are going to give to that virtual machine? Remember, we talked about we are going to assign MySQL server 1 to that virtual machine. Now, this is the default location where that virtual machine configuration and files and everything will be saved. If you want to change the location, you could change it by clicking here, but my recommendation is that you leave it as a default. Click next. The disk requirement. Now, again, think of it that you are on an assembly line and you are building your own computer. So you go ahead and change the 20 gig to 50 gig and store virtual disk as single file, split virtual disk in multiple files. So we'll go with the store virtual disk as a single file. Click next. All right, ready to create a virtual machine, click Finish to create the virtual machine. Then you can install CentOS 8 64-bit. These are the specification. The virtual machine will be created with the following settings. As if you could see, it will be created with a hard disk 50 gig, CentOS operating system version, the version of the hardware of the virtualization, and memory is right here, which is 1024 MB, which is what? 1 gig. And what the memory we decided to do? 4 gig. So before we actually click finish, we'll click on customize hardware. Right here, memory 4 gig, we're going to change it. You could either enter it here directly or you could drag this up and down to set the memory. So the memory is usually 4 gig, 4096 equates to 4 gig. Processor. You could go with one processor or two processor. If you have a high resources or extra resources, you could go with two. New CD, DVD, we don't have the ISO image yet, so we'll leave that out. Network adapter. There's one thing I do want to pay attention. I want you to click on bridged network directly to the physical network. Bridged allows you to communicate from your virtual machine to the outside world. So make sure you select that. Connect that power on. It is already selected. If not, go ahead and check mark that one. Next one is USB controller. Leave that default. Sound card, printer, and display. Leave everything as is default. Click close. And now click finish. There you have it. So my SQL Server 1 virtual machine has been created and it has all the specification or hardware that you needed inside of the computer. Now this machine has no operating system, so the next step is to go ahead, download the CentOS operating system and install that operating system on that virtual machine. So I'll see you in the next lecture. Hey folks, in this video we are going to download and install CentOS Linux operating system on our virtual machine. So going back to our design or our lab, we have our computer running Windows or Mac and we did the virtualization software on top of it, and that is VMware Player or VirtualBox. Then we created our virtual machine with all the resources specifications. Now it's time to install that operating system on it, and that will be sent to us. So, of course, before we install it, we need to download it. Now, where do we go and download? You go to, first of all, your favorite browser. Let's say I want to go to Firefox and go to your favorite search engine and type download CentOS 8. Okay, so now go to download CentOS, the first link. So from this page right here, it says CentOS Linux. It is automatically selected on 8. Click on x64, 64, x86, 64-bit, and pick the first link. Now, 9 out of 10, the first link, first mirror link will work. So click on it, and right here you have the link of ISO images. You have to pick the ones that ends with dvd.iso or dvd1.iso. You will also notice that it has the highest size. So go ahead and click on that one and click on save. Now this can take anywhere from a minute to 10 minutes depending on your system speed and your internet speed. So I have already downloaded that ISO image to save us some time. Now, if you are downloading for the first time, then I would recommend that you pause this video right now and come back when you have the ISO image downloaded. So assuming you have the ISO image already downloaded, now let's go ahead and start our virtualization software. And it is VMware Workstation Player. Find it and start it up by clicking on it. Now find the virtual machine that you created previously in the last video. So you could start the virtual machine by clicking on this power on button, which looks like a play button, or you could click here which says play virtual machine. Either one would work the same way. So let's go ahead and click play virtual machine. And from this point, you will see it will stay just like that because it doesn't have any operating system. So we need to attach the operating system ISO image so we could go through the installation of it. So for that, we have to go and drop down this player, removable devices, CD, DVD, and settings. From this setting, we go to the use ISO image, click on browse and find the location where we have downloaded the ISO image. I have downloaded on my personal folder, sorry, not personal folder, my desktop, CentOS 8.4, click open. It is attached, click OK. Now, as soon as you click OK, you click inside of this and hit enter. You see, as soon as you hit enter, it will give you the menu to go ahead and either install the CentOS Linux 8 or test this media and install CentOS Linux 8. Now, for the first option, which is the simple and straightforward, second option is for those who think that while they are going to download, their media was corrupted for some reason, then you could actually check by running this option. But anyway, let's go with the first option by moving your up arrow key and hitting enter. Okay, it says right here at the bottom is CentOS 64-bit is not installed on this virtual machine. Insert the disk which we already have, and now you could simply um, click never remind me. Okay, now let's just wait for the operating system to kick in. It is going to go through the installation wizard, which we will go through together. Okay, so we have the very first screen of the installation wizard. It says welcome to the CentOS Linux 8. Select the language, which is English, and depending on which country you are in, select that one and click continue. Okay, now on the first column right here, you'll see localization, keyboard English, software installation source local media, system installation destination. If you see automatic partitioning selected, select on this. It is 50 gig. Yes, it is. Click done. Language support English United States. Software selection server with GUI. So I'm going to install the server, Linux server with a GUI on it. GUI is a graphical user interface which gives you a window type of environment where you could use your mouse and keyboard just like as if you're using in Windows. Kdump is enabled. That's a kernel dump. If something goes wrong with the kernel, it will create a dump file. Um, and if you keep it enabled, it means it will create it. Time and date, pick the one depending on your time zone. Network, click on this one and turn this or slide this to the right by clicking here on. And right here you see host name. We're going to pick our host name MySQL Server 1. Now you're probably thinking, isn't this the same name we picked for our virtual machine? Yes, that was the virtual machine name, the container name. Just like as if you have a Dell machine which has its name as Dell with the model number. And inside of the Dell, it has an operating system and it has its own name. So we picked the same name for the computer and its operating system. So it doesn't really matter. So now click on apply. As soon as you click on apply, you will see current host name on the right hand side changes to MySQL Server 1. Beautiful. Click done. Okay, 1 second. Let's go back. This is not connected. If you leave it on, if you stay here on this screen for a longer time, it's gonna turn it off again. So simply go ahead and check, move this on and click done. Now root password. Now this is the password as an administrative password, just like you have in Windows. So you have to set the password, pick the one that is easy to remember. And if you are picking a weak password, pay close attention. It's telling you right here, the password fails the directory check. It is based on a dictionary word, which you will have to press done twice to confirm. So one done and twice done. Then it will take it. So make sure you are clicking done twice. Then at the bottom, user creation. If you wanted to create a user. So since we are at the screen, why not create a user? So what is the full name of the user? So user would be MySQL user. And that is the same username for that. Make this user administrator if you want. Pick a password. Click done. Again, done twice if it's a weak password. Now click begin installation. Okay, now this is going to take easily from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. So please be patient and I'm going to fast forward this. And once that completion is done, then I will come back and we'll go from there. So finally, our CentOS Linux installation has been successfully completed. Now go ahead and click on Reboot System. License information, click on it, accept the license agreement, and done. Click Finish Configuration. Okay, so now we got the login screen. Click on the user that we created during the installation and enter the password that you chose and click on sign in. All right, here you have your desktop. This is the new welcome screen that will come for the first time. Click next. Typing, leave it English US. Location services, you could turn it off. Next. And skip. And start using CentOS Linux. Getting started for GNOME help if you want to go through the GNOME, which is a GUI of Linux, or you could simply close this down. Now, if you right click sorry, not right click, if you go to activities and click on terminal, this is the terminal that you have. We will use this terminal to actually do the installation of a MySQL and perform all the other tasks that are needed to manage our MySQL server. I'll see you in the next lecture. In this video, we will download and install CentOS Linux on our virtual machine. So here we have our physical computer running any operating system, but for example, we're running Windows. You could have Windows 10, 11, or whatever the latest version you have. Or maybe you have a newer version of Mac. Anyway, this is your physical computer at home. And then on top of that, we have already installed the virtualization software and we went with VMware Player. Now you also had the option to go with Oracle VirtualBox. Now, after the installation of virtualization software, we created our virtual machine in the previous video. And then now it's time to do the installation of the Linux. And we are going to do the installation of Linux CentOS version 9. So let's go to our VMware player, which is right here, and we have created our virtual machine, which is MySQL Server 1, which we named it. Now, before we actually go ahead and attach the CentOS ISO image to this VM, we have to download that image. So for the download, you have to go to any browser of your choice. I'm going with Firefox, and then type it in www.centos.org, and then go to download page, click on the download, and then click on CentOS Stream, and then you will see the CentOS Stream 9 is automatically selected. And now click on x86 underscore 64-bit operating system. Now, as soon as you click it, you'll see on the right hand side it will start to download. Now, I have already downloaded this ISO image because it's almost like 8 to 9 gig and it takes a lot of time to download. So if you have not downloaded, just pause the video right now and let it download. Once the download is completed, we'll go back to our virtual machine, the VMware Workstation Player. We'll come here and we'll right click and go to the setting. And in the setting where you see CD DVD right here, we will click on Use ISO image file and click on Browse where you have downloaded the ISO image. I have downloaded on my desktop. So right here is the CentOS Stream image file, and then click OK. And now go ahead and simply play virtual machine or power on, or you could click on from here as well. And let the virtual machine start. As soon as it starts, you will see the CentOS Stream 9 and install CentOS Stream 9. So pick the first one. So first click inside the window, move your cursor up, and then click install CentOS 9. Please know some of the things might take some time to load up, and I will be fast forwarding some of the installation progress. All right, so we have the Welcome CentOS Stream 9 page. Keep the English and English United States selected because that's where I am. If you're in a different region, select your region based on where you are. Click Continue. All right, keyboard English, leave it as default. Installation source media, local media, leave it as is. Destination, installation destination, automatic partitioning, just click on it and you will see it is selected the 50 gig that we carved. This is the hard disk we carved for our virtual machine. The storage configuration, leave it automatic. Click done. All right, once it's done, you see that exclamation, the warning sign is gone. Language support English, leave it default. Software selection, server with GUI. Yes, we want the server with GUI, so leave it default. KDump is enabled. Time and date, is based on your region, network, and host name. Let's click on this one and define our host name. The host name will be MySQL Server 1. We are picking the same host name as we picked for our virtual machine. All right, just click apply. As soon as you apply, you'll see the current host name is changed to our newer host name that we picked. Perfect. And then click done now. Okay, so all of these options are done. Click on root password. Let's pick a root password. If you are not picking a root password, and you're picking a weak root password, you will have to click done twice. But before you do that, click here where it says allow root SSH login with the password. So you could log in directly with the root. So just pick this option and now click done once. See, it says press done again to use the password anyway. So done again. All right, so it is done. Now just simply click begin installation. Okay, so this begin installation, this entire process could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. So I am going to fast forward from here. All right, so installation has been completed. Go ahead and click on reboot system. All right, welcome to CentOS Stream 9. Click on startup. Disable location services. If you want to keep it enabled, it's really up to you. Click next, skip, and create your account by putting in your full name and the username. If you like it, I like to keep my first initial and then last name. You could change that and click next. Oops, sorry. Okay, next. Password for your account. Click next. Start using CentOS Stream. All done. Beautiful. All right, so this is your desktop that is given to you when you first time install and start your CentOS 9 stream. Welcome to CentOS stream. If you wanted to take a tour, click on take tour. For now, let's click on no thanks. And here, when you click on activities, you'll get these options at the bottom. Just click on terminal. This is what you will be using the most to do the installation of a MySQL server, the database, and will run queries, and everything you need to do will be done on this terminal. Hey, beautiful people, congratulations, you have completed the CentOS installation. Perfect. Now let's spend a couple of minutes and understand how we could manage our virtual machine. So in this lesson, what we will learn is how to manage and change the resources of a virtual machine. So let's go and start up our virtual machine. And by the way, right now, if you have your virtual machine still powered on, I want you to go ahead and power it off. Now go to Start menu or search and look for your VMware Workstation Player or simply type it and it will pop up. Click on it. Okay, once it's up, go and click on MySQL Server 1. This is your virtual machine. Now, if you want to change the resources or change the setting, then you would have to go either here, edit virtual machine settings, or you could also go from here, player, and from here you could go to manage and virtual machine settings, but whichever is easier for you. So let's go. This is the easier access. So click on this one. And right here, if you wanted to change the memory, let's say if you decided to increase the memory because you feel the system is running slow and you need more memory, then you could actually change it. Same thing with processor, same thing with the hard disk. If you wanted to increase the hard disk size, you could expand it right here where it says expand. Now, if you wanted to add a new disk instead of increasing the existing size, then you could simply click here, add, and select the hard disk and click next and leave it recommended, create a new virtual disk, and specify the size right here of the new disk that you are adding. And you're going to go through next, 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 and finish, and it will add a new disk right here. And then once you're going to start your virtual machine, and then you have to mount that new disk. Anyway, the next is the CD DVD ROM. We already covered that when we mount or attach the ISO image. The network adapter, make sure your network adapter is on the bridged network connection, because this will allow you to ping other websites outside or talk to outside. All the other settings should remain as is. Do not select any one of those. USB controller, if you want to remove it, you don't want USB attached to your VM, you could remove it by clicking right here, remove. But for now, you could leave everything as is. These are the other advanced options that you have available. The first one is general. Let's say if you want to change the virtual machine name, you could change it from here or from the main menu, which is right here by right clicking on it. Power, you could also check here, enter full screen mode after powering on. If you wanted to have the full screen, entire screen to show the entire virtual machine, you could select this. Report battery information to guest. Shared folder, if you want to share a folder between your your Windows computer or Mac computer to this virtual machine, you could do it right here. VMware tools, if you want to synchronize guest time with host, you gotta have VMware tools. So since we already have that, you could synchronize the time or leave it as is. Many times database administrator would like to make sure that the system has the accurate time. So you might want to enable this. Then there are other couple of options that you could read on. Anyway, for now, you could just go ahead and simply cancel that. Now, if you, once again, if you wanted to start up this virtual machine, you could click either here or here. Let's go ahead and start our virtual machine. It's going to go through the same procedure. It will give you the first uh, boot location um, by default. Do not change that. Leave everything as is. And let's wait for it to come back online. Let's log in, select the user, enter the password. Okay, so this is our desktop. You could open up the terminal by going to activities and click on the terminal. Right here from the terminal, the very first thing I want you to do is type if config command. This is the command which will tell you if your computer has a network IP address. So hit enter, and when you run it, you'll see it has a little scroll bar. So some of the information is chopped off. This information simply disregard. This information simply disregard. The network adapter that you're really looking to get the information on is right here. This is the one that you need. Right here, and iNet, this is telling me that I have an IP address for this Linux machine. Beautiful. So it means I should be able to ping other websites. Ping is a command to connect to outside or other computers. So ping www.google.com, hit enter. If you're getting a ping response, beautiful, then it means your computer or your virtual machine is on the network. You could type control C to get your prompt back. Now, in case you do not have an IP or you're not able to ping Google, then you could go to right here. You see this little icon right here. This shows the network. Click on it. Go to wired network, wired connected. Click on a wired setting, and just make sure it is connected right here. You could also click on the setting right here and make sure you have connect automatically checked, make available to others checked. Then on the identity, the name should be there, IPv4. The method to select or to assign the IP is DHCP. Make sure you have that checked. Automatic DNS routes automatic. IPv6 you don't need, so you don't have to check that, and security just should be all off. So all these settings should have the same as mine. Then you should be able to go online. So anyway, that's how you do your management of your virtual machine. Now, if you want to shut down this virtual machine, you could simply go to right here, suspend guest virtual machine drop down menu, and click on shut down guest. Or you could simply see this cross close. This once you click on it, it will also give you the same options: suspend, power off, or cancel. Always power off, and it will shut down your virtual machine. That's how you do your VM management. I'll see you in the next section.